Think about the new study. Lawsuit system cost small businesses $182 billion. Imagine for a moment. Like it's not a millions. Think about it. It's not a 2 billion. It's not a 10 billion. It's like 100. It's almost $200 billion. Think about. I was thinking about this. We are, as a small business owners, we are the job creators. Think about it that way. Then why this lawsuit system goes against us? I had this. I will share a story of mine. One of my drivers hit by a car in California, but I really want to introduce. She's an amazing human being. She's a business lawyer. I want to introduce her real quick, and then we'll start really going into details. And you guys know the drilling. We'll go into asking questions, obviously talking about the problems and what are the solutions that we have. I want you to pay attention and please take notes, and then we will have the Q&A at the end. And whatever the questions you have, please let me know. So I have Amira, and I'll add her to to the live in about a couple of minutes. But I really want to introduce her. Think about, she's internationally quoted business lawyer. I want you to pay attention to this. She's amazing. She's also 7-figure blogger. That means she is an entrepreneur, right? So I really relate to her because we do have business lawyers, the different types of business lawyers. We're not going into details, but she is a business owner. She is an entrepreneur. So she kind of understands us, what's happening. And think about, and she's also a coach with over a decade of experience helping entrepreneurs like us, right, legally protecting themselves so they can feel safe and secure about their businesses. We really wanted to feel secure with our businesses, right? Don't we? So after seeing her father, this is amazing. I so relate to her. And I'm a father as well. And my kids experienced this, like thousands of dollars lawsuit, and she had the same experience. Her father lost his business, and there was a $90,000 lawsuit. Guys, this is harsh. And what's amazing about her, like, she's decided to become a lawyer right after this. Like, well, I want to protect my family. I want to protect my father's business or my business and other business owners as well. Think about, while she was a full-time lawyer, she founded a company, a self-guru. Right? It's an online business dedicated to helping bloggers and entrepreneurs scale their businesses legally. This is very important. But I want you to pay attention to one thing, that she's helping, and she helped. Think about that way. It's 50,000 entrepreneurs, guys. It's not a 5,000. It's 50,000, right? Entrepreneurs. She was being recognized and featured on Yahoo Finance, Business Digest magazine, Authority magazine, CEO, or the CEO blog Nation, and many others. Guys, without further ado, I really want to, invite her, and I want you to meet with Amira. Give it up, Amira. How you doing? There you go.
Good. I'm so excited to be here, Kamal. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Wow.
Awesome. Well, Amira, I really, since people know already, but and they really wanted to learn about the story that you have with your father. Let's start with the story, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I was in college and I was actually studying to become a doctor. So a lawyer was nowhere on my mind. And my father unexpectedly got hit with a big lawsuit. He had hired a freelancer to help him out with his business, but there was no contract in place. And then this freelancer was actually somebody that he knew. So there was this trust, right? And a lot of times, unfortunately, in life, we get, excuse my language, screwed by people that we actually care about and that we think we know and trust, and then they end up, backstabbing us. So that kind of what happened with my father. So it came out of total left field. We didn't expect it. And then he also sued the business as well as my father personally, so there was a lot on stake, and that lawsuit lasted an entire year, wiped out all our savings, and my dad had taken a loan to start the business. So it was devastating to say the least. But in that 1 year, helping my father navigate the legalities and just kind of learning everything, it just like really opened my eyes to a whole different world, right? Like I was coming from medical, all the the medical stuff, studying, to the legal stuff, and I was really inspired to kind of help other people avoid the mistakes, because my father actually made a mistake, which a lot of business owners do, right? He's not the only one. People forget to use contracts, people trust people, and then when it comes to business, we just sometimes don't take care of the legal aspects. So I wanted to make sure that I specialize in business law so I could help other entrepreneurs with all their legal issues and avoid common mistakes.
Wow, wow, awesome. That story, when I, went to your website, it's selfguru.com. Um, uh, you know, when that when I read that, like, you had this lawsuit, like your father lost his, business, and I was like, I remember this. And by the way, this is actually how it happened. I had a driver. He was a pretty young guy, but he was an awesome guy. But
Uh-huh.
he's still alive. But what I'm saying is that he's no longer my driver. But we picked up a load in California. He was, coming back. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and you know something really bad happened. When he while he was driving, and he realized that the load, it's not well enough secured, meaning,
Uh-huh.
so we are tarping the load. So he stopped to secure the load. And think about it, it's a highway. I think it was a highway 10 in California. Like, he was just kind of lost for a moment, and it was hit by another car. I don't want to over exaggerate this. That was, for me, it's like a nightmare. And this is how all of these, like, thousands of dollars, the garnishment, whatnot, the lawsuits,
Yep.
happened. And imagine, like, 7 a.m. in the morning, and a police officer calls me saying, "Hey, may I speak to owner of the Prime Express? My tracking company name was the Prime Express LLC." And I
Right.
said, "Yes, this is the owner of the Prime Express. My name is Kamal." And said, "Well, one of your drivers, was hit by a car." The only thing I was thinking back then, it's not about lawsuits, the money, the business,
Right.
nothing. The only thing about, like, I was thinking is like, is he alive?
Is he okay? Right.
Yeah, is it okay? But for some strange reasons, this officer didn't give me any information about, like, is it his life? I'm like, you know, it's like he's being, transported to the nearest hospital. Like, officer, please help me. Is he alive? Like, he's not giving me information. That was kind of puzzle for me. But then
Yeah.
we quickly decided to go. And yeah, it was a nightmare. And what happened? Obviously, he, hired um, the lawyer, and lawyer helped him. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
what was the procedure of hiring for the Prime Express? Obviously, I made a couple of mistakes that I should have trained him. There are a lot of mistakes that I made. I'm not, blaming him, but I was just like, I'm blaming myself that, hey, I was
Yep.
like, I'm running a business, like, I'm okay, like, everything is fine. I'm not even paying attention to, like, we have these contracts, mostly free templates, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of tweaked a little bit. But then, wow, thousands of dollars coming at me. It's like lawsuits after lawsuit. And we would close that, claim, meaning that case. But then the lender start attacking me because insurance give up
Yes.
on me. That's it. If you have no insurance in your trucking business, that means just like, that's it. You're out of business. Now
Right.
I, like, have thousands of millions of dollars in debt, and it's like, now the reposition, process happening. That was, total nightmare. So I think it's really good to share with, people. And one of my students told me that, come on, like, you are sharing, like all these, stories. I was like, man, I think everybody has problems, but they
Yeah.
need to share with us. But for some reason, they're not sharing, with other people. Hey, I'm like, hey, we are here since you, Amira, helping, entrepreneurs and myself, right?
Yeah.
So we helping entrepreneurs like, hey, we have these problems. Please be careful, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not about the expenses we have, the monthly expenses for our businesses. I think the biggest expense is a lawsuit. Don't you agree?
Yes, 100%. You're so right. And you're so right. Like people don't openly share for whatever reason, but I think it's so important to share because, sometimes we celebrate all the wins and all the good things in business, but I think we also need to share the problems so that
Yep.
way other people can learn from us, right? Instead of making those mistakes.
Awesome, awesome. Amira, since we're talking about the problems, we're not, I would say, protected online. And
Right.
why I'm saying online, since this, recession hit, this COVID thing, it's been a nightmare for many businesses out there. And obviously, we're not kind of moving into like digital era, like people, running, online businesses and independent freight dispatching. This is what I teach.
Right.
Independent freight dispatching business, they're online businesses. And obviously, we're not protected online. What are
Right.
the consequences of this then if we're not protected? What will happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think we started off with that, right? Number one, like seeing the number of lawsuits, right? It's alarming, but it's the reality of our country. And the number one thing is just getting sued and not expecting it because there's a lot of things that you don't see coming. The second thing is the financial loss, right? Like losing a lot of money, losing your sleep. I mean, from going through your story, and I know from my own lawsuit nightmare just losing that financial stability that we had. And also, like, your family suffers, right? You're not alone. So I always say this, that when you get into even a small legal issue or a big lawsuit, it's not just affecting you, it's really affecting your entire family, right? So your kids, your parents, your spouse, things like that. So it's just so many different things can go wrong. And also you can be out of business, like what happened with my father, like he had to start from scratch all over again. So there's just the consequences are really serious, and it's not to scare, but that's the reality, right? It can just be a small dispute with a client to a massive lawsuit.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, the lawsuit, meaning, let's call it expense. It's not happening, as I said, like every month.
Right.
We really focus on like monthly expenses. We need to pay a rent, or they're like maybe CRMs that we use, a software, whatnot, and employees we have, all those. We focus on those, expenses, but we're never. I don't want to say never, but it's kind of like back there. We're not even
Yeah.
pay attention, but then that is the biggest expense. Think about when I was running, the transportation company, meaning trucking company. I have, yes, tens of thousands of dollars expense every month, but I'm
Right.
generating revenue, kind of sometimes breaking even, sometimes maybe I'm profitable. But then this snowball hits me really bad, and then it swipes out, and then boom,
Yeah.
bankruptcy or out of business. And
Yeah.
it's like we really need to talk about this. And I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, I'll be um, interviewing Amira. She's a business lawyer, and we were talking about this. And he said, like, we that is the biggest expense, but we're not
Yeah.
even pay attention to this, right? And it's for us, we're not learning about the processes, we're not learning about the laws, whatnot. But
Yeah.
then it becomes like the unknown. Since
Yes.
it's unknown, and it gives us this fear when we hear something like lawyers and like lawsuits, and this is
Yeah.
we have this fear. So the one of the reasons why we do this is because, hey, we need to kind of face that
Yeah.
fear, and then be prepared. This is very important. Since we talked about these consequences, lawsuits, and you perfectly said it, their financial, yes, cost to attach to it, then it's like
Yes.
emotionally, it like, I remember those days. Emotionally, you just like, man, I'm not even going into details. Like,
Yeah.
this is huge. And since we talked about the problems, what are the solutions that we have for online entrepreneurs?
So there are different things, right, Kamal? So first thing is obviously, making sure that you research, you understand what you need to do legally to protect the kind of business that you have. You can work with a lawyer to ensure that you have all the right documents, and as well as the contracts, as well as the policies, different things that you need. If you have the online presence, then there's some additional requirements like website policies. If you're a brick and mortar, then there's a little bit different requirements like business licenses, permits, things like that. So you want to first make sure that you kind of understand, like when you're starting your business, that's the right time to do your research, speak with a professional, set up a call, learn what you need to learn, and then put those things in place, right? Implement those things from the get go. So this way you have a strong foundation for your business to succeed. And then, God forbid anything goes wrong, at least you have all the legal things taken care of, instead of then, later on the lawyer coming in and trying to clean up the mess, and you figuring out that you never even had any legal protections to begin with. So that's even worse.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, I want to talk about this. The when I was searching for specifically for online business, and I came across with your website, and I said I really wanted to work with. And by the way, guys, quick mighty disclaimer: Amira, she is a lawyer, but she's not your lawyer. So
Yes.
this is for information and educational purposes only, guys. Please, if you really want to work with Amira, there will be a link below this video. You can obviously work with her, and I definitely recommend the audit. And what's audit? Audit is basically when you hire a lawyer and saying like, "Hey, I really want you to just take a look at my business. What are the problems I have? What am I missing? I really wanted to like protect my business. So what do you think?" And then I, hired Amira, and then she did a. I don't want to share the results with you, but I had about like I don't know 20 something. I'm not gonna say problems, but there's something that I need to improve. Obviously,
Yes.
I thought, hey, I'm running a couple of businesses. I'm protected, and she's like, people can easily sue you because of these points. You really need to place these the policies on your website. So, and if you guys wanted to work with Amira, obviously there will be a link, but I definitely recommend the have the audit, work with Amira, so she also a coach, she can coach you obviously, but then the audit, it really helps. I'm blown away by the service that she provided for entrepreneurs, us, right? So please, if you wanted to work with her, there will be a link below. Amira, I do have questions. And by the way, guys, if you have questions, please let me know. This is your day. Amira, she's here. She's a business lawyer. Guys, any questions you have, please let me know. And I do have, a couple of questions that I really wanted to ask Amira, and then we can go quickly. So there's question: what is the cost for just checking approximately? Meaning working with Amira. Is that what you're saying? Please, Famila, please let me know, and then we'll go from there while I'm asking these questions. So these are the questions, Amira, people were asking a lot. And by the way, like, hey, I'm not a lawyer, I can't give you legal advice, and this is one of the reasons why I said, Amira, let's help my students, and obviously audience out there, meaning entrepreneurs. They will have questions, but these are the questions that comes up time and time again. And I want to ask this question: do I have to form an LLC, and why?
Okay, so great question. Before I get to that, I just want to quickly mention about the audit, is in case somebody had a question. My prices, and Kamal can attest to that, are super affordable as compared to hiring other lawyers, because I've been in that situation and I'm a business owner myself. So if you wanted to learn more, you just visit the Work With Me page to learn about the services that Kamal talked about. Moving on to the LLC question. So the question is that, do I need to form an LLC and why, right? So first thing is that you don't have to, but it's highly recommended that you should. So you have two options. One is that you're operating your business as a sole proprietor, meaning you do nothing. You don't file the legal entity, you don't file the LLC. Then what you're considered in the eyes of the law is you and your business are one. So there's no separation between you and your business. You're operating as a sole proprietor. You have one tax return and all of that stuff. So the issue with that system is that it's obviously easy because you don't have to do anything. But the problem is, because there's no separation between you and your business, then your personal assets are at risk, like your home, like your car, your checking account, and other stuff, right? Savings. So that's why what people do is they form the LLC to get that legal protection, to get that shield. So this way, your personal assets and your business are completely separate. And God forbid, if there's ever a situation where your business is being sued or you run into any kind of legal issue, then the LLC will be the one that getting into legal trouble, but your personal assets will be protected. Or if tomorrow you're out of business, you file bankruptcy, or you do, you lose, you have other liabilities, or you lose money, once again, your personal assets will not be at stake if you follow the process, keep your expenses separate, different bank accounts. So forming an LLC has its own requirements, right? So that's why people usually form the LLC, because it's easier. It's not a lot of work as far as getting the formation work done. It's easy to maintain. You just have one annual fee that you have to pay to maintain your LLC. And so that's the reason why it's recommended versus the sole proprietorship where everything is open, right,
Mm.
for liability.
Awesome. Awesome. I had that question, but you already covered it. Like, what's the difference between the sole proprietorship and an LLC? I think we got that. But then, when should I form an LLC for my business?
Yeah, so this is a really good and common question. I get this question like a lot, even if in my Facebook group or people emailing me. And the funny thing is, the answer is really simple. It really comes down to your risk tolerance.
Mm,
Some people like the comfort and peace of mind of forming their LLC right when they're starting their business, because from the get-go, it's done, it's out of the way. I got my business, I'm starting my business. I got my LLC, got my business account, I got all of that stuff taken care of. Now I can concentrate on growing my business. Other people like to experiment, right? They want to first see that, do I have a viable business? Is this just an idea? Am I going to actually make money from this business? Why should I go ahead and form the legal entity and incur those costs and do all that work when I don't even know if my business is going to succeed?
mm,
So there are two approaches, right? So that's why I said it comes down to your risk tolerance. Like, are you the kind of person that wants to feel that peace of mind, do things the right way from the beginning? Then obviously go with the first approach, file it, get it done. You can always dissolve the LLC later on if your business doesn't succeed. Or the other approach, which is, let me first test the water, see if my business is actually generating revenue, I'm making money. Well, once your business is making money, doesn't matter the amount, 1,000 a month, 10,000, 100,000, doesn't matter. But once you know that you have a viable business, like something that, generating money and profit, so then it's a really good idea to go ahead and form the LLC if you haven't already. Does that
mm.
answer the question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, if there's like a proven concept, then you can go ahead and form an LLC.
Right, right. But
Absolutely.
some people do it even if there isn't a proven
I see.
business, right? It really depends, again, on your preference.
I see. So, Amira, help me with this. We can easily go to the Secretary of State.
Yes.
For example, I'm in Georgia, and I can go to Secretary of State, and I can easily file an LLC. Do you recommend? And I have my own preference, obviously. Do you recommend doing by yourself or hiring a lawyer or small business attorney who can help you with this?
So if you're really comfortable and you're well versed in the law, then yes, go ahead and do it yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But you do run the risk of making mistakes or
Mm,
not doing things the right way. For example, making sure, a lot of people will do this, like they'll go ahead and try to do the DIY approach, like I'll do it myself, but then they forget an important step. Like they'll forget to have an LLC operating agreement, or they'll make a mistake on the articles of organization that they have to file with the state, or they'll just overall not do the research to make sure that is that the name that I can even use. So there are different things that in the process. But if you're really savvy and you feel confident and you're like, I know what I'm doing, then fine, go do it. I mean, I'm not gonna stop you. But if you have any doubt or you don't want to bother with this stuff because it's out of your realm of expertise,
Mhm.
then I would say trust a professional, go with a lawyer. So this way, at least you know that the paperwork is done correctly. You're going to have the opportunity to ask questions, right? There's a back and forth. A lawyer can guide you on, hey, maybe you don't just need an LLC, you also need a DBA. DBA is doing business as. So, for example, I'll give you an example. I had a client that she thought she just needed an LLC. So she reached out to me and she hired me to file the LLC. But when I started looking into the business and I started looking at the names and I started looking at her website, I was like, hold on, you also need a DBA, which is doing business as, right? So that's additional paperwork that you have to file in addition to the LLC. So she didn't even know that. So if she
Mm.
didn't do that, then she was basically making a legal mistake. And so these are some of the things that I'm saying, like a lawyer can kind of advise you once a lawyer gets to look at your business. So you have like more security and peace of mind with that option. But at the end of the day, it's really your choice, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think everything boils down to like peace of mind.
Yes.
My preference is like, I really want to work with the lawyer because if I don't know, I
Yes.
don't know, right?
Yes.
I can easily make mistakes. And one of my friends, he is also in trucking business. There was a bankruptcy and he had his brother as a 50-50 partner. But then, the document was missing, the important document. I think was the operating agreement, something like that,
Yes.
or partnership agreement. It was a total nightmare for them, but I should have been like easy process, right? But they formed their LLC by themselves, went to the Georgia Secretary of State, filed the LLC. But it's not just filing an LLC and you have this paperwork,
Yes.
article, organization, whatnot, and you're ready to go. There are a lot of things attached to this. Absolutely.
Exactly, exactly. And you're going to need that operating agreement when you run into any kind of legal issue in court. That's going to be the evidence that you're going to have to present. So that's why it's an important piece of document that people don't realize. People think that, oh, I don't need to file the LLC operating with my state. For example, some states don't require it officially filed. But as a general practice, you should still have one at all times as part of your business record. So this way, if there's ever a situation where you end up in court, you're going to need that operating agreement to show as evidence that your LLC is indeed separate from your personal assets. Otherwise, once again, your personal assets are at risk without that.
Wow. Guys, I hope you guys taking notes. Wow. So let's start, taking some questions. Famila says, perfect. Is it better to have an LLC better than a corp? This question is if I don't live in the US. I live in another country. So she's out of country.
Got it. So for it's generally easier, even if you're in the US or you're outside of the US, to form a LLC, even as a foreign LLC, versus a corporation. Corporation comes with more legal requirements and then more paperwork. So to answer your question, yes, it is better to have an LLC, but then you also want to one more thing you want to always check is you not just the legal stuff, but you also want to check the tax liability associated with that. So for your own taxes, like I'm an LLC, but I get taxed as an S corp. So you always kind of want to check your tax situation with your accountant or whoever's doing your taxes to make sure that whatever entity that you're picking, it all depends on your numbers. Okay, so I can't advise on that, but you need to kind of also have that in the back of your mind that how is this going to be beneficial for me for tax purposes. So legal purposes, yes, the LLC is a better route, but also check for tax purposes.
Wow. Subscribers and obviously audience were asking me a lot about taxes,
Yes.
the legal side of the business, whatnot. And think about you are a lawyer and you are saying that like I can't advise on the tax, but you are a lawyer, but why you can't advise on the tax side?
So great question. It's because each tax situation is different. The
Mhm.
numbers, how much money you're making, your household income has a lot of bearing on these legal entities that what you're picking and whatnot. So that's why each person's tax situation is very different, right?
Mhm.
So I am specialized in business law. I'm not specialized in tax law. So it's not my, job here to, and without honestly looking at your numbers and your full financial situation, how could I do? I would be doing a disservice if I blanketly said, oh, do this, do this, do this, but your situation looks totally different, right? So I would be giving you wrong advice. So to avoid that, that's why we say that always consult with a tax professional, someone that has looked at your tax returns, someone that has looked at all your numbers over the years. That person is in the best situation to guide you about taxes.
Awesome. Awesome. So, while we're talking about taxes, there, Mahmoud John has a question. What are the taxes for a single non US resident member independent freight dispatching company?
Yeah, so same thing. It depends on the taxes also depend on the state. So where you, even though you're non-US resident, but you gotta have some sort of, there are foreign taxes, different taxes. Again, this is something that you would have to, sorry, consult with, your tax professional, because it's not something that I can advise on without looking at the numbers and without looking at, all the different variables.
Makes sense. Got it. So let's talk about a little bit away from taxes and come back to this
For legal.
legal aspect of the business. Do I need a business license and why?
So there are two things when it comes to business licenses. Okay, number one, what kind of business you have, and number two, where you're located. So each state, at least in the US, has their own rules when it comes to licenses. It's a statewide thing, not a federal thing. So if you're in Georgia, I'm in Florida, different states have different laws when it comes to business licenses. Some states will require, for example, anytime you sell a digital product for you to have, collect sales tax, whereas other states won't. So this is something that you have to check with your state depending on the kind of business you're doing, because license requirements differ based on the type of business that you're doing.
I see.
So
Awesome.
there's no blanket answer that goes across the board. Unfortunately, it's a state by state specific issue.
Awesome. And for independent freight dispatcher specifically, you don't have to be what is it, the licensed independent freight dispatcher. As Amira says, that is totally different thing. But each state, for example, I live in Georgia, it's one of the requirements that I must have a business license to run my business. So please pay attention to that. And a second question, and by the way, guys, if you have questions, please, they're awesome questions, please ask while Amira she's here. So do I need a business insurance?
So, great question. Business insurance, just like how we protect our cars, our homes, right? Why should we not protect something that we put our blood, sweat, and tears in building,
Mhm.
right? So, think of it the same way. It's always a good idea to have business insurance. I mean, from your situation, I know from my dad's situation, and just working with so many other kinds of business owners, right? I've worked with over the years, I've worked with business owners in the online space as well as the brick and mortar space. So there are different kinds of risks and liabilities associated with the type of business you have. So generally speaking, it's really a good idea to get a business insurance. But then the next question is what kind of business insurance? So that's where what kind of business you have is what matters, right? So if you're in the online space, let's say I'm offering professional services, then I probably want a professional services like professional liability insurance.
Mm,
So that way my advice or my information being shared cannot be used against me, or in the likelihood of any legal issue, I should have that kind of liability insurance in place. Or let's say you're brick and mortar, right? So then you have an establishment or something, then you need like a commercial liability insurance, right? So avoid any kind of accidents and injuries. So, think of it like a security blanket. At the end of the day, you're not legally required to. Nobody's saying that you must have, unless some businesses, once again, the state regulates sometimes that you should have. But If you're in the online space, there's no legal requirement, but people go for the insurance for the same reason that people have insurances for their houses and their cars. So that way, if ever an issue arises with a customer or any kind of lawsuit situation, at least the insurance will protect you.
Awesome. It's kind of, as you said, perfectly like extra blanket, extra shield, extra protection for your business. Awesome.
Right.
I really want to talk about, since the theme of this, live stream or the training is about like protecting your business online. I really want to talk about since the website is actually business, right? So
Yeah.
we need to, protect our business, meaning, website. So I want to talk about the website, policies related, questions. So I do have, a couple of questions. Please help us with these questions. What are the 3 legal pages or website policies all entrepreneurs need?
Great. So if you have an online business and a website, then there are at least 3 legal policies, or what I call them legal pages, that you should have on your site in the footer section of your website.
Mhm.
I'm giving all these details because these are frequently asked questions.
Yes.
When I tell
Please.
you like what you need, then the next question is, well, where do I post them? So I'm already kind of letting you know, post them in the footer section. Now, what are those 3 website policies? Number 1 is a privacy policy page on your site.
Mhm.
Number 2, a disclaimer. And number 3 is terms and conditions. Do you want me to explain each, or?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so a privacy policy is legally required. So it's not an optional policy on your site. If you have a website, you're legally required, whether you're in the US or outside of the US, to have a proper privacy policy that tells your visitors, the people who visit your site, as well as your customers, what information that you're collecting from them and how are you going to use that information.
Mhm.
That's the whole purpose of it. And then there are privacy laws out there. There's we're not going to get into like all the this would become a long lesson,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of information on my site about this, but there are privacy laws that you have to ensure compliance with, and that's why this privacy policy is needed, because otherwise you risk getting audited, fined, and sued by the Federal Trade Commission. So if you
Mhm.
go to their website, you'll actually see tons of companies, small, big, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, and even the small ones like Zoom have gotten in. Not me, Zoom is not small, but you know what I mean. There's so many different levels of businesses that have gotten in trouble because of not having these proper policies or not
Mhm.
maintaining customer data. So that's number 1. Number 2 is what you need, a disclaimer. Now, think of a disclaimer. We've been talking a lot about legal liability, lawsuits. A disclaimer really comes in handy to protect you from legal liability. So anything that you are sharing online on your website, in your courses, in your products, you want to make sure that you're protected, right? Because we're like the information encyclopedia here, right? We share so much information. We just have no idea how that information is going to be used or perceived, or what someone's going to do with that info. So that's why having a disclaimer, it limits your legal liability. It puts people on notice that, hey, whatever you do with this information is your problem. You can't come after me for legal damages. And God forbid, even if they do, then that disclaimer will serve as an affirmative defense in court, so that you can actually present that legal policy that, look, I'm not the one who told you to do this. I had all these things in place to protect, right? The third one is what's called terms and conditions. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard about them. They're also called terms of use, terms of purchase, terms of service. They're referring to your website, policy, like what you permit, what you don't permit, your rules and regulations. Also, like protecting your intellectual property, such as the content that you produce. Also, like where and how legal disputes will be resolved. Like, you live in Georgia, so obviously you want to make it very clear in your terms and conditions that if there's ever a legal issue, that's where, you would resolve it. And they're also important to outline your like refund policies, your exchange policies, your legal rights to terminate someone's use of your product, things like that. So it's really important to have terms and conditions and have people accept your terms and conditions if you're selling products.
Awesome. So that was was about to ask, like, do I need terms and conditions if I'm not selling anything on my website?
So you need terms and conditions, yes, even if you're not selling anything on your website. But if you are selling something, then you absolutely need them, because we just talked about that you need to be able to put your customers on notice as to what is your refund policy. What's, do you offer money back or do you not? Things like that. So otherwise, you're going to have disputes with your customers. And I've actually seen this happen to many different entrepreneurs where they actually had to issue thousands and thousands of dollars in refunds because their customers, they didn't even have a policy. So their customers just asked for refunds, and then they had nothing that they could go back and say, hey, look, these are our terms. We don't offer, refunds. So they ended up having to lose a lot of money because they didn't have terms and conditions.
Oh,
But even if you don't sell anything, you still need terms and conditions because they're your website rules, and they also protect your intellectual property, and they also let people know if there's ever an issue with your readers or people that visit your site, that how legal disputes will be resolved. So they limit your legal liability as well. So either way, you need them.
well, yeah, it's a contract. Like, if
Yes,
we're not offline, I mean, not online, but offline, we have these policies in
right.
our businesses. We have contracts, so there's no different, right?
Yes.
So awesome. Let me go. Well, we have a lot of questions, but if time permits, um, the templates. I use free templates. I'm guilty, but to me, those are like, I don't know if 100% it was written by the lawyer, but I, had this when I was, running my trucking company. It just made sense why free legal templates are not enough to protect my business.
So there's so many different reasons. Number one is that you don't know who wrote the templates, whether you can trust them. Number two reason is that I've been auditing free legal templates for years, and I found so many loopholes in them, exposing the company to risk. And that's the biggest issue with them, that they're never ever having all the legal provisions that you should have. Even when I was doing your audit, if you recall, there were so many different things that were found because I could tell that those were, these were things that were missing, and you absolutely needed some of those things to make sure that you're protected and your business is protected. So this is a common thing when I'm auditing, and if someone has used those templates, then I can easily tell, because a lawyer would know to include those additional provisions to make it comprehensive, make sure that it actually has the legal jargon to protect your company. And that's the problem with free templates. You get what you pay for. And the second thing is that you also run the risk of copyright issues with that,
Hmm.
because, under copyright law, we can't use content that's from other people without getting permission. So if I don't even know that who wrote the template, whether I have legal rights to use or not, you're also risking it running into copyright law issues with that. And the last really important thing is that they don't hold up in court. So if there's ever a situation where you're taken to court, you want to make sure that you have proper documents that are actually going to be in your favor to protect your business, versus just a free template that you think is going to protect you and then be surprised that it doesn't.
Wow. Well, okay. So let's take this question real quick. Mahmoud John says, how non-U.S. resident business owner can deal with the low lawsuit. I think this is what he was mentioning. Lawsuits in the U.S. So non-U.S. resident with the U.S. resident, how they dealing with these lawsuits?
So there are always like international like lawsuits, right? But again, even if you're in the even if you're not in the US, you want to first make sure that you try to resolve the legal issue through outside of the court, right? So arbitration, mediation, these are things that you include in your terms and conditions to basically not have to go to court, not to have litigation, not have a lot of legal liability. So that's the number one way, if you're outside, to try to resolve it amicably, like, through a mediator, through a third party service,
Mhm.
versus, trying to hire a lawyer internationally and, incurring like a big expense.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So the can I let me take back a lot of independent freight dispatchers that use I do see, and why is that? Because I do have a lot of students, and I do see before the joining the program, they will tell me something like, hey, I downloaded this free template online. and they want to review, like they need a lawyer to review. So that this is the question: can I get a contract reviewed by you or drafted by you before working with a client meaning carrier or any other clients?
Absolutely. I mean, I highly recommend that anyway, because this is something really important to make sure that whichever contract that you're using, that it is in your favor. Because remember, contracts, depending on which party or which side it is, they're going to be written in that person's favor. So I'll give you an example. I hire freelancers, and let's say I use that person's contract and I'm the client. It's going to be written in the freelancer's favor, right? There will be additional terms that are protecting the freelancers, but probably not the client, right?
Mm.
So that's why when you have a contract, you always want to make sure that it actually protects you and it has your best interest. So yes, I do offer that service. You can work with me. I actually have a contract review service. I did that one yesterday for one of my clients. She was going to work with a brand, a big company, and she wanted me to review the contract to make sure that it actually protected her, because her small business, not just the big company. So we discussed different terms and we revised some things. So yes, we can totally do that if you wanted me to look at over your contract, or if you wanted me to draft one from scratch, like I have that service as well. So I work in all industries, and if you, I mean, contracts is really my specialty. So if you ever need a contract specifically tailored to your needs and your specific business, then I'm happy to put one together. And that's all on my Work With Me page anyway. So you can take a look at it. And that's something I've done with a lot of entrepreneurs, because every business is a little unique, right? So you're like, well, Amira, I think I'm running this special, or I'm offering this service, but I want this, and I want to make sure I'm protected from XYZ. So that's where I come in and I make sure that I refine everything. I write the policy the way you want it so that it actually protects your business.
Well, awesome. So I think the next question will be, I know, our time's up. I know that we had about 45 minutes, and thank you for this, time. Amira, there are a lot of the lawyers that I talked to, and I really want them to like interviewed, and then, hey, I do have an audience. They have a lot of questions, the legal questions, but I legally can't give them advice, but I need you. Number one problem is like you guys are very busy. The second, you guys charging a lot of money,
Yes.
but you are very generous. You offering your free like 45 minutes of your life that you never get back. But thank you, and you're a good public servant. Thank you so much. How our the viewers, I would say, connect with you.
Oh, awesome. So there are a couple of ways to connect with me. Number one is you can join my Facebook community and post your questions there, get easy access to me. We already have 7,000 some entrepreneurs in there. It's a self-group biz blog community. Number two is, my website, aselfgrew.com. You can check out the different blog posts on different topics. I'm very generous with my information, to the point where my husband says it's like I give away too much. So you'll notice that on the blog page, there are hundreds of different blog posts on different legal topics, business topics. So I guarantee you that you will learn something. So there's a lot of free information and value. You can also sign up for my free legal guide to kind of learn the important mistakes to avoid. So yeah, there are all these different ways, and of course social media like YouTube, Facebook. I have my own channel, so I'd love to connect with you in any way you like.
Awesome. So the YouTube channel you have is Self Guru. So this is
Yes.
how people search. Okay, awesome.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I realized that you have about like almost 100 videos, about 70,
Yeah.
67 awesome videos with a lot of information.
And
Thank you.
most of them are customer testimonials. I've never focused on YouTube, but this year that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be creating more content. So over the years, the videos that you're referring to, predominantly, there's so many customer testimonials and some other video lessons and things like that. But my goal is to really focus on YouTube this year.
Well, thank you. And so you have these, policies, the bundles you have on your website. So we do have, guys, link, below. There are two links below this video. You can please check them out. And I do highly, highly recommend Amira. So you will be amazed. I promise this. And obviously, guys, we need to protect our businesses. This is very important. I can't emphasize this enough, but we've been talking about for 45 minutes now. I think a little more than that.
Yes.
Amira, I want to say thank you so much. And one thing, guys, that Amira agreed on, so we talked about this, is that I know that people, obviously it's 2 to 3 p.m. right now. It's Eastern time, but there are a lot of people working. Then people will be later watching this interview. They will ask a lot of questions. I need your help, and she agreed to do this on a consistent basis, but not for a long time, but maybe 3 to 4 times these live streams that we specifically will be talking about protecting your website. Please follow Amira. If you have any questions, please let us know. Other than that, thank you. Be safe out there.